Join me in my kitchen today as I make an incredibly easy sourdough biscotti. Now, if you're unfamiliar with biscotti, it is a twice-baked Italian cookie. They are crunchy, they are sweet, and they go perfect with an afternoon tea. You can dunk them in your coffee. So delicious. So I'm really excited to share this new recipe with you today. So in a large mixing bowl, I'm going to put a 1/4 cup of olive oil and a cup of sugar, and I'm going to mix it up really well. Now you can make this a long fermented dough if you want to do this initial mixing of the dough, cover it and put it in the fridge for all the way up to a week if you want to. I'm doing a quick recipe today, and so you can, if you want, use discard or unfed starter for this. It will work just fine. This is so impressive. It's easy to make, but if you bring this to like a family gathering or something like that, everyone's going to be pretty impressed because I don't know, biscotti is kind of like a fancy cookie to me, or that's how I've always looked at it. And so I'm really excited that I finally got this recipe worked out and I'm able to share it with you all. Now I'm just using a raw cane sugar. I'm having a hard time using my measuring cup in this container, but 1 cup of sugar and a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And I'm going to just take you can use a regular whisk or a dough whisk. I'm using a dough whisk. And I just want to make sure I get this completely incorporated, that the sugar has completely dissolved into the olive oil. And once I get all of that incorporated very well, then I proceed on adding the rest of the wet ingredients. So we'll be adding dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. Now you can use pretty much any flour that you want to. You can use all-purpose flour, bread flour. I'm using an all-purpose kamut flour today, and you can also use, of course, freshly milled flour. I would normally do that, but I am actually taking these somewhere, and usually when I do that, I use an all-purpose kamut flour. It's still easy to digest. It's an ancient wheat. However, it is just really light and fluffy and makes for a bit of what people are used to when you tell them you're bringing them something like a cookie or a cake or a biscuit or something like that. So I added 2 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I'm going to mix that. And then I'm going to move on to adding my sourdough starter. My starter was fed yesterday, so I could have done a long fermented version of this, but I needed to get this up on the blog. I'm actually going to be photographing this today as well, and so I just wanted to get an early start and get it done so I could get that taken care of. But I used 1/2 cup of sourdough starter. It doesn't have to be fed. This is a quick recipe. There's no real leavener in this because it's a cookie. It's going to be a crunchy baked good, so you're not really looking for fluffy and airy and stuff like that. So, but once you get all of that mixed together, what I like to do, because I've always done this, I'm not sure why, I like to add a little bit of the flour and then add my salt. I've done that for years. I can't tell you that there's any real good reason behind it, but you know, that's just what I do. So once that is incorporated really well, I'm going to go ahead and add probably about 2 cups of the all-purpose kamut flour, and then I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. Now this recipe calls for a total of 2.5 cups of flour. You are looking for a cookie dough, and so it will have that consistency of cookie dough. You could probably even scoop these onto a cookie sheet and bake them, and they would still be incredibly delicious, because I'm telling you, you're going to love these. They are so, so good. But I'm just going to mix that in. So that's, I think I did a cup at first, then I'm going to do 2 cups, and then I add my last 1/2 cup right at the end. I just add a 1/2 cup at a time, just making sure, because every day in your kitchen can be a little bit different, and you don't want to over add flour because it becomes really hard and dense. And so today it was exactly 2.5 cups of flour. And now I'm going to get all of this mixed up together into a nice soft cookie dough. And then I'm going to work on the almonds. Now, it's a traditional thing to add almonds to biscotti. I've never had it without almonds before. I think usually you would add an almond extract. I didn't have any on hand, but I'm telling you, it didn't matter. These turned out so good. So I am leaving the recipe as is with just vanilla. It turned out so good. As you can see, it's a perfect cookie dough consistency. I'm going to forgo the whisk now, because once I fold in the almonds, I'm just going to use like a spurtle to do that. But I like to take 3/4 of a cup of almonds. I'm using a raw almond because I don't want any added salt or anything like that. And I'm just going to give them a rough chop. You don't have to, get too fussy with this part. Just roughly chop the almonds, and then we're going to toss them in to the cookie dough. Now I'm just going to take this big spurtle and fold those almonds in. You don't really want to overwork this dough. Just like with a cookie dough, you don't want to go crazy. You're not trying to build gluten. You're not trying to build strength or anything like that. So once you get those folded into the dough, I'm going to take a little silicone mat. This one came from Nutrimil, and it's like a cookie mat, and I'm going to get the dough onto the mat. Now you'll probably need a little bit of flour. I use a little bit of flour on my hands to work with this dough. And what you're going to do is divide it into roughly. You don't have to, measure it out or anything like that. You can make one big log if you want to, but I find it easier to work with 2 smaller ones. It just was easier for me. So I put a little bit of flour on my hands and just kind of, gently fold the dough over once or twice, and then I'm going to divide it into 2 equal parts. Again, not wanting to overwork this dough, I just took a knife and just eyeballed what about half of the dough would look like. And then you want to take each one of those pieces of dough and just kind of roughly shape them into a flattened out log. It's 3-4 inches wide. So I just made a log, as you can see, and rolled it, and then I pressed it out so that it would make a good size cookie. And so I just did both of those. And now when you are working with this dough, if you need extra flour, I had to stop a couple of times and add some extra flour to my hands. That's fine. Once you get these 2 logs of dough done and shaped, then you want to put them on a baking sheet and get them in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. Now, once the dough has cooled for 30 minutes, I put them in a preheated 350 degree oven for 30 minutes. And once I take them out of the oven, I'm going to let them cool for about 10 minutes or maybe up to 15 minutes so that I can slice them into the biscotti shape. And then we're going to actually bake them again. So you just want these balls of dough or logs of dough to be at a temperature that you can handle them. You don't really have to wait for it to cool completely, just enough that you can handle it. And you want to cut them into slices, and they probably about 1 to 2 inches each. And then we're going to put them back on the baking sheet, and we're going to bake them in the 350 degree oven for another 10 to 15 minutes, flipping them halfway through. So when you take them out of the oven, just feel them. If they still feel pretty soft, put them back in the oven for like 2 minutes. And that's what I did here. After that 2 minutes, they were perfect. These are amazingly delicious. Like, I don't even trust myself with these. I hope that I have some left over so that I can actually take them to my mother-in-law's house. But here's what they look like. Oh my goodness, so good. I hope that you all will give this a try. The recipe is going to be down in the description box below. They were so good. Let me know if you tried these out. Let me know, tag me on Instagram or Facebook. But check out the description box for the printable recipe. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it and you'll give these a try. And we'll see you on the next video.